Hello everyone and welcome back to another Minecraft video, and today it's a very special spooky episode. A little bit after Halloween, I am aware. But I had done something in Minecraft that I thought was pretty cool and I wanted to share with all of you. So today, as you saw in the little intro cutscene, I have added a new boss into Minecraft. That's right, and this one was for the little Halloween event that I ran on my Vanilla Plus server, known as the Pumpkin. Basically, I figured that Minecraft didn't have enough challenge or bosses or holiday events, so I tried my hand at making my own. And now while this is in a Vanilla Plus modded server, all of this can be done completely in vanilla. So I thought I would walk you guys through what that actually looks like and how to make your own boss in vanilla with a custom health bar, music if you so desire, and a whole bunch of different phases. So without further ado, let's just take a look. So you saw in the intro cutscene that we have this little pumpkin arena right here. So I made this, it's got a whole bunch of barriers around, and basically when players come up to this block right here, they will be able to walk in and they can walk out, as long as the pumpkin hasn't been summoned yet. Otherwise this little teleporter won't work to get back out. This is very, very, very simple. It's just a couple of command blocks right under there. As you can see, it just teleported me again. That say if a player is standing within a block and a half of this block right here, teleport the nearest player that is within 1.7 blocks of this command block back a couple blocks, which is just right here. And I did the same thing on the other one. So basically, when a player comes and steps on this, it's close enough to the command block so that it warps them back. But you've probably known that already. That's just a very simple command block teleporting trick. Once the players get in here, the very first thing that happens is they will be set into adventure mode within the radius of the arena. Once again, we have a pretty simple setup for that. We just have a couple of command blocks under here. This one over here basically says execute as a random player within a 25 block distance, unless they're in creative, which is just a tag. So if I am working on here, it won't set me into survival or adventure. And then it will take that same player and set them into adventure mode. And then to make sure that it's not doing this every couple ticks, we have a block right here that says, okay, and everyone around the area, we will add a tag called Pumpkin Arena, which means that if you're already in and you're already in adventure, you'll have that tag, which means you won't be set into adventure mode again. So then on the other side, we have a very similar thing that basically says, set players to survival that are further away than 28 blocks, just so we have a little bit of overlap there, or a little less than an overlap, and they have the Pumpkin Arena tag. So this means when players leave the arena, they go 28 blocks away. The ones that already have the pumpkin tag, meaning they've been here, will be set back into survival mode, so you can go and do all your survival gameplay away. And then, of course, that same player, distance 28, that still has the Pumpkin Arena tag, it will remove that tag. So that is what we have for those command blocks there, and that is to set up what has become the Pumpkin Halloween Arena. So as you can see, I just made this kind of ring around where the players could actually fight the boss itself, and this hopper directly in the center. Now, if you noticed in the opening kind of cutscene, this hopper was actually glowing, and that's a very easy thing to do. I will just set it to midnight. Basically, I have it set to whenever the server reaches between 1700 and 1900 ticks, so just around the hour of midnight, the hopper will start playing a particle effect around it. That's to let the players know that it's only at midnight they can summon the pumpkin. And what they do to do that is they throw a very unique item, which I was giving out on my server as part of the event, but you, making a boss, can make it any item you want it to be. I had this called a spooky pumpkin. So this pumpkin right here has a couple of NBT tags specific to it. And I have a command block that I'll show you in just a second that detects when a spooky pumpkin is placed in the first slot of this hopper, only when it is around midnight, so when the particles are glowing, and that will summon the pumpkin. But that's pretty much all I wanted to show you guys from up top up here, just in case you wanted to make some kind of arena fight or things like that. But let's get into the meat of this, the actual boss. Now, you're looking to make a boss in Minecraft. Well, first you gotta think of a couple things. What does that mean? What is Minecraft missing? Do you like the Ender Dragon? Do you not like the Ender Dragon? I just broke the hopper. We'll cut that. We'll fix that. That's a-okay. But the Elder Guardian, do you think it's a little underwhelming? Do you want another Wither-like boss? Do you want to add a boss to the Nether? The first thing that you're going to want to do is pick a mob or model that you like. If you notice, the pumpkin is actually a stray type of skeleton, the ones that spawn in the ice spikes and ice plains, because I thought that kind of fit the Halloween aesthetic. But keep in mind, you can pick any mob, and I will show you how to augment their health, their speed, their base stats, potion effects, so you can make it boss-like. So, with all this arena and everything set up here, I will show you where the actual command blocks come into play. And once again, all of this can be done 100% vanilla. We are currently playing on 1.16, which I think is absolutely amazing. So, this is the gutty works of all of the boss stuff. Now you'll notice I have a lot of chain and a lot of repeat command blocks, so a word to the wise, if your server has trouble with lag and cannot keep up with a bunch of repeating command blocks, maybe this is not the method for you, but trying it out in single player surely will not hurt. So the first thing that we're going to want to look at, of course, is actually summoning the boss itself, or what the boss is actually going to look like. So if we come over here, we have this chain of command blocks called Summon Pumpkin. So if we look into this one right here, you'll see that we actually have a lot of general text. You don't need to worry about all this. What you do need to worry about is the beginning right here. So we have it executing if the block, this is the hopper that I was telling you guys about, if the hopper inside of it has a pumpkin right there, and then if it has all of these NBT tags, the spooky pumpkin, if it's dark purple, if it's enchanted, it just checks if it's the right pumpkin, so players can't just throw any pumpkin in there to summon the pumpkin. And if the dummy score of TOD, or time of day, matches between 1700 and 1900. So that, once again, I have a dummy clock set up, which just ticks every Minecraft game tick. And if the time of day is between 1700 and 1900, then you can throw the pumpkin in the hopper. Unless this dummy score right here, now this is really important, Pumpkin Lives matches 1. And I'll get to that in just a second, but that's kind of our condition to not summon the boss, so it doesn't summon a million times. And then right here, we can see we're going to run the command summon stray at the coordinates we want it to, and then all these custom NBT tags. Now, how do we determine what the boss is actually going to look like, all of its attributes, how it's going to act, and all of that kind of stuff? Well, there is a brilliant website called MC Stacker. I'll put a link to it in the description, and you're going to want to go check it out if you're into making maps or mobs or any sort of thing ever. It's basically a very easy command generator for Minecraft, so you can type in what you want. For example, I put that I wanted a stray, and then you can just use sliders and numbers to move up attributes like its health, its damage, what it's wearing, and the website translates it into a Minecraft command, so you can just copy and paste. So on the website itself, I wanted the pumpkin boss to have a lot more max health. I believe it's 500 on this one. I gave it a whole bunch of different armor pieces, all with their own enchantments, but you can do all of that from the website, then just copy and paste onto here. Super, super easy. So now we have a command block that summons the pumpkin itself up to where we want it to, correct? So what happens after the pumpkin gets summoned? Well, we have the rest of this chain that happens, and this works best if you're creating a boss for Minecraft that you want to have specific events to summon it. For example, throwing an item into a hopper, or once a player enters a certain area, or if there's a certain time of day that you want a boss to spawn, you can put all of those criteria in this first one. If you want a boss mob to spawn naturally and randomly in your world, then you might want to look into doing mods or things like that. It is possible with command blocks, but unless you want to lag your server out significantly, I figured that the easiest way would be some kind of trigger event, like throwing a pumpkin in a hopper. So after the pumpkin itself gets summoned, we continue, and this is when we start setting all of our scoreboard stuff. If you're not familiar with the scoreboard commands, I would familiarize yourself as best you can. Basically, you want to set up a whole bunch of dummy scoreboards with names that you'll remember, things like Pumpkin Lives and stuff like that. So throughout all of these command blocks, you can reference and check them, and they will all set themselves to the numbers that you need them to set to. So specifically for the pumpkin encounter, you remember that we had a summon unless Pumpkin Lives matches 1. What this means is if we threw the pumpkin in the hopper and we didn't have some kind of check, it would just keep summoning the pumpkin over and over again. To mitigate that, as soon as the pumpkin gets summoned in the exact same tick, the next command block says set Pumpkin Lives to 1. Now what this will do is the game knows that the pumpkin is alive via the scoreboard, so it won't keep trying to summon it, as we have all of these purple ones are repeating command blocks, so they will try and trigger every tick that they are able to, but if pumpkin lives matches 1, then it cannot trigger. Another word of advice is, unless you want to do fancy things with comparators and redstone, you want to set all of these command blocks to be always active, this little selection right there. Every single one, unless you want them to only be powered by redstone and do very specific torches and things like that. All of these will be running throughout the game. The purple ones will repeat, so they will keep trying to activate themselves. These green ones are chained, so they will only activate if the purple ones activate. And they're all conditional, so they'll only activate one after each other if the previous statement is true. So going back into what the pumpkin actually summons, we also have this little text event. Now, if you don't know what the tell raw command does, this is another one that you can set up in MC Stacker. It's a handy little command that allows you to send text directly to a player without needing of a source. For example, if I type something on the server right now, although it might be a little cut off on the screen, you can see that it comes from Mudkip Ninja with the little triangle brackets, and it says, hey. The tell raw command actually lets you get around this and do all sorts of different colored text. You don't need a source, so you can put in anything you want. And when you summon the pumpkin, it'll look something like I set up here, where it says the pumpkin, I changed the color, and then I wrote his little dialogue that'll pop up in the chat that you might have noticed in the opening cutscene. So that happens directly after the pumpkin gets summoned. And then we actually have it playing a bit of music to the player. Now, the music that I chose for this event is copyright. It's actually the final boss music from Mario Galaxy 2. So I don't think that'll make it into the video. You'll probably hear some royalty-free fighting music. But this one is probably one of the only other super complex things that I want to talk to you guys about. And I say super complex, it's actually not very. So if you go into options and you go into your resource packs, this is going to be your best friend when it comes to adding music into the game. There's a brilliant tutorial that I'll link in the little iCard at the top right, which shows you how to get your own custom music into a resource pack into Minecraft 1.16. If you follow it along, it's about a 17-minute video. It's not too bad. And it details how to replace existing Minecraft music with your own custom music. Basically, it asks you to replace existing things, so I chose the credits music that you get when you beat the End Dragon and go through the portal, and we replaced it with our Super Mario Galaxy music here. So you can see that we have, the command is pretty simple. It will execute at the pumpkin, so that's the source of the music. We want it to be at this entity, so all players around it can hear it. And we want to play the sound of Minecraft music credits on the master track. This is just what track you want it to play on: music, mob, ambient. I chose master so everyone could hear it. And we're playing it to all players within 30 blocks. We don't want to play it to all players on the server. The coordinates of it, and then of course the volume commands. This is just all in the play sound function that you can go through. So now we have our pumpkin spawning. We make sure that it knows that it is spawned. We have a little text event that pops up in the chat, and we have music that plays at the players. So far, it's looking pretty cool when the pumpkin spawns. However, visually, some things are still lacking. So what are we going to have to look at next? The next thing that we're going to want to do for spooky ambiance, and this was just specifically for the pumpkin, I didn't want it to turn daytime while the players fought him because I thought it would be cooler to do it at night. So we have the daylight cycle set to false as soon as the pumpkin spawns. And then we are actually setting one of those teleport blocks to terracotta rather than the glazed terracotta that we had, the little arrow up there. So that tells players that if they're standing there, they can no longer teleport out of the arena. Then for visual effects, we are giving the pumpkin, give the pumpkin levitation. This allows him to float in the air and give him more of a spooky vibe. And then of course, we are also summoning lightning bolts. So you have that grandiose effect. Lightning bolts flash down, the pumpkin runs up in the air, the music starts. And I will show you a little trick that we have up here. We are also having a beacon effect. Now, I'm not sure you noticed it in the opening cutscene, but I think it's right about here. We actually have a powered beacon that I have built right beneath the grass. And rather than setting the beacon itself or setting the beacon blocks or things like that, what I have going on right in the beginning is it sets this block that I'm looking at right here to be orange stained glass right when the pumpkin spawns, which means you'll get that cool orange beam effect only for a couple seconds while the pumpkin floats up into the air, and then one of the next command blocks actually shuts it off. Again, just for added visual effect. You don't need these for your boss, but I thought the entrance is pretty much everything when it comes to summoning your boss. And then finally, we are clearing the hopper. Because the pumpkin in the hopper doesn't actually go anywhere when you throw it in, we have to set the hopper to just be a blank hopper. So those coordinates will reset back to a hopper, which means that hopper will be empty and it won't keep checking for the pumpkin that's in the first slot because it will no longer be there. And that's it. For summoning our pumpkin, that is what it looks like. So once again, I will show you. I'll just quick set it to midnight and I will grab myself another spooky pumpkin out of the ender chest I have set up. You know what, we might as well grab a bit of them. We'll grab a half a stack. We'll set it back to midnight. If I can type. And now, if I throw a spooky pumpkin, just the one into there, we have the lightning effect, the pumpkin flies up, the beacon, he falls back onto the ground, the beacon goes away, and we have the music playing in the background. So, that's all well and good as we now have our pumpkin spawning, but what about the actual custom health bar? You know, we have the pumpkin, we have its attributes that are set in this very first command block, so it has bonus health and potion effects all done on MC Stacker. We have all of the visual effects that play, but what about its AI? What about its health bar? You know, what comes next? Well, the next thing that we're going to want to do is actually set up a contingency for removing the pumpkin. Now, this is very, very important while testing on your server or your single-player world, because when you spawn it and you want to kill it to test its loot drops, or if you go too far out of the radius and you want it to despawn, you're going to need a way to make sure that everything gets reset so you can do it again very cleanly. Now, I know a lot of people might tell you to set this up at the end, after you already have all of your scoreboards and everything that you need to reset, but I promise you, if you do it towards the beginning, it's going to make a lot more sense, as you can just kind of fill it in as you go, and it will help you so you don't have to reset things manually throughout the whole time. I'll show you what I mean. In this repeating command block right here, we have it set if pumpkin lives matches 1, so we already know our dummy scoreboard if the pumpkin is alive, unless there is an entity called the pumpkin within 100 blocks of this command block. So basically, this is only going to trigger if the pumpkin was alive and it's no longer within this 100 block radius. That means either a player's killed it or you've gotten too far away and it has despawned on its own. So once both of those criteria are met, it will set pumpkin lives back to 0, which is of course the very first scoreboard that we set over here. So already we've canceled one out, which is perfect. And then we have a whole bunch of more command blocks that set the rest of his abilities back to 0. And the more important one, stopping the music. I just did it on everyone on the server, rather than trying to target the players that might have died or players that were still in the arena but killed the pumpkin. Anyone that's listening to this music on the server will automatically stop. The music will go away because it's quite loud otherwise. We set our daylight cycle back to true. We set the terracotta back to the glazed terracotta, the pink arrow up by the arena. And then we have a whole bunch of more scoreboards that we will get into later, which is important. Over here is where we're actually going to set up the boss bar. So now you noticed on the top of the screen while we were summoning the pumpkin, we had the fancy yellow health bar that appeared. Now, natively in Minecraft, this isn't actually too hard to do, as there is a very simple command and system that allows you to do this if you were unaware. So in the create boss bar command block here, we're executing as a random player within 50 blocks of this command block if pumpkin lives matches 1, unless we already have a scoreboard. So what this is actually saying is if we don't have a scoreboard and there's someone within 50 blocks, and as soon as the pumpkin is spawned, we will do the boss bar command. Now, once again, I recommend going to MC Stacker to set up your own custom boss bar, as you can choose the color and the notches and all of that quite easily. But here we're adding a boss bar called pumpkin right there. And the display name, the name that will actually show on your screen, is called the pumpkin. So what this does is as soon as the pumpkin spawns, unless there's already a boss bar called pumpkin, it will spawn a new boss bar on the top of your screen and call it the pumpkin. But we actually want to set what that looks like and what players to show it to on the server. So the rest of the command blocks we have set the Minecraft pumpkin boss bar to yellow. That's how you get the yellow effect that we had. Then set the style to 20 notch. That's just my personal favorite. It's the one that has, well, 20 notches right across the top of the screen. Then the most important one you do not want to forget is setting the max of the boss bar. If you forget to do this, the boss bar will not fill, or it will just fill to be a numerical value unequivocal to the health you actually set to the enemy. Now, of course, we actually have to tie the visual of the boss bar to the physical health of the pumpkin, but we'll get to that in just a second. So I set my pumpkin's health to be 500 on MC Stacker. It's in this attribute right here, this listing. So I also want to set the max of my boss bar to also be 500. And then finally, in creating the boss bar, we just want to set a new dummy scoreboard of pumpkin bar to 1. So once again, this is basically just saying, hey, there is this boss bar created. You don't need to do it every single tick. So it'll run through this once, set the boss bar to 1, and then unless boss bar matches 1, it will go. So it will no longer go. So now you've created your very own boss bar. Honestly, if you were interested in introducing boss mobs into Minecraft, these 3 commands would be completely enough for you. You summon a boss when something happens, as many visual and oral effects as you want. You remove it, so after it dies or despawns, you reset all of the triggers. And then you create your very own boss bar to be displayed to players and stuff like that. If that's all you're concerned with and don't want to do custom AI, then perfect. You are all set. You now have boss bars on any mob that you want to summon. However, we want to go a little bit further, so we actually want to show which players can see the boss bar. Now, this is a very interesting command in Minecraft, because Minecraft doesn't natively just show players within a certain distance when you create your own boss bar. Rather, we are saying at all players within a distance of 50 blocks, we're going to run the boss bar command of boss bar set, then the name of our boss bar, which was pumpkin. We want to set the players, and it will be all players within a distance of 50 blocks once again. So what this is basically saying is all players within 50 blocks of this command block will run the command, which means all players around them within 50 blocks can see the pumpkin health bar, which is exactly what we want. So now you have a visual and seen health bar at the top of your screen, but it's currently not actually set to the pumpkin's health. It's just set to have a max of 500. So how are we going to knock it down a few pegs? Well, that's where these next couple command blocks come into play. The first one over here is actually setting the boss bar value. This is a little more complex than your other commands, but it's still relatively simple, so I will try and walk you through it best I can. We are going to execute as the pumpkin, so this is saying it will only happen because it's a repeating command block, as the pumpkin. So if the pumpkin is dead, this will never trigger. But if he's alive, we want to execute store result of the boss bar into the boss bar Minecraft pumpkin. And what are we storing in there? A value. So I'm just going to break this down very quickly. The store command in Minecraft is very interesting because you can actually store numerical data inside of block IDs or inside of boss bars or a couple other places as well, which is actually quite cool. And not just numerical data. If I go to the result, we can actually change that to success. So if something happens, you can also store the success of that event inside a boss bar or somewhere else in Minecraft. For example, a block, an entity, a score, or in storage. A very, very useful command if you want to keep track of certain things, like an entity's health. So here, we're storing the result of this command block inside of our pumpkin boss bar. So what are we actually storing? Well, we are going to store a value, and we are going to then run data get, and this is actually getting data of an entity, which I suppose you could probably guess. You can also do data merge, modify, or remove if you wanted to edit the data that we're about to check of an entity, the one that's running the command. Long story short, this basically says, okay, we're going to store the result of this entire command block, whatever the numeric result is, inside of this boss bar. and we're executing it as, remember, the pumpkin. So the pumpkin himself, we are checking its health, which is this last thing right here. The path to its thing. You could check its armor. You could check its damage. There's a whole bunch of different paths that you can find on the Minecraft wiki. But the one that we want right now is the health. So what this is going to do every tick, because it's always active and on repeat, if the pumpkin is alive, it will check whatever health it has and store it in our boss bar up at the top. So what that means is we've already set the max of the boss bar to be 500, and now whenever the pumpkin takes damage, that will be reflected on the boss bar at the top. This is the part that most people forget about, is actually tying the boss bar to the entity itself. And finally, with boss bars and all this kind of stuff, we also want to get the boss health for later, but this time we want to store it as a score. So once again, we are going to execute it as the pumpkin and store the result, this time as a score instead of a boss bar. And we're going to make a new objective here called pumpkin health. It'll be a dummy, and once again, we will get the entity's health. So what this will do is later we can check and see if the dummy score of the pumpkin's health is equal to a certain value, and then we can actually run different commands based on how much health the boss has left. This is extraneous if you want to do cool AI later on down the road, depending on the actual health of the boss. The other tricky thing that you have to remember is, for some reason, Minecraft doesn't get rid of boss bars on their own. You can't just show and hide them to certain players. You actually have to get rid of it. So here we have the removing boss bar command. So we want to execute this unless the pumpkin is still alive. So basically, as soon as the pumpkin dies, we want to get rid of the pumpkin boss bar that we made, which also means we have to set the dummy scoreboard of pumpkin bar back to 0, the one that we had set in one of these earlier blocks. I think it was at the end right there. Yeah, set the pumpkin bar to 1. We have to set it back to 0 because the bar is now gone. So the pumpkin will spawn, the boss bar will be created and set that score to 1 so it won't keep being created. And then until the pumpkin dies, it will stay up there. As soon as the pumpkin dies, it will get rid of the boss bar and then also set it to 0 so we can create another one in the future. So that is most of the behind the scenes stuff with creating your very own boss mob in Minecraft with a health bar that players can see, visual effects, and all of that. So just so you can see what we were actually talking about, we will summon the pumpkin once again. I'm just going to turn my audio down so I don't have to keep cutting out the music. I will summon him. The lightning strikes, the beacon spawns because we changed that block to orange stained glass. He floats up with levitation, and as you can see, he has his very own health bar at the top of the screen, named the pumpkin. 20 notches, it's yellow, and if we go over to him and we punch him a little bit, he has quite a lot of health, so it might actually be better if I hit him with a diamond sword. You can see that the boss bar actually reflects any damage he takes because that repeating command block is constantly checking his health and setting the boss bar accordingly. And of course, if we do kill him, I will kill at E, name equals the pumpkin. You can see that the boss bar does indeed disappear. All of our commands are reset down below, and the pumpkin himself does die, which is exactly what we want. So that's about just going to wrap it up for this first portion of the making your own Minecraft seasonal event boss. With everything you learned in this first video, you could actually go ahead and make your own boss in Minecraft using health bars, custom attributes from MC Stacker, visual effects, audio effects, and then just make sure you reset everything whenever it dies. In addition, we also showed you how to set up a cool arena like this one, change particles, blocks, teleporting, adventure mode, and all that kind of stuff. In the next video, we're actually going to go through several phases of the boss mob, so you can have it do things like spawn minions, have a half health phase, and then eventually we'll also talk about mob drops and actually resummoning and all of that kind of cool stuff. But until next time, everyone, thank you so much for watching.